overview of the cardiac system. Because if you don't get this, you probably won't understand anything else that we are going to do for the rest of the semester. Since the heart is so important. Is that better? Alright. So basically you guys know this stuff already, right? This is the purpose of the heart. It has structures, 3 muscle layers. What are the muscle layers?
Myocardium.
Endo. What does endo mean? Okay, so that's the innermost layer, right? What's the next layer? Myo. What does myo mean? Myo is middle. Okay? In this case, the myocardium is going to be the middle part of the heart. What is epi? Okay, outside, the exterior layer of the heart. What is it what encases the heart? What is that sac called? Pericardium. Okay, the pericardium. And then you know that there's a space between the pericardium and the pericardium, parietal pericardium.
Visceral.
And what is that space called?
Pericardial space.
Very good, pericardial space. All right. So what is in that space that kind of helps the heart contract and expand and contract? Fluid. Okay. So we want that fluid to be in there so there's no rub, there's no friction. If that area is dry, you can hear that, right? When you listen to someone's heart, you can hear a pericardial rub. What are the 4 chambers of the heart? Alright, can't get it wrong. How many sides of the body? 2. What are they? Alright, actually extra kind to us because what's on top is the same on both sides, right? And what's on the bottom is the same on both sides. So if we have brain part, you know, there are 2 sides of the body, there are 2 sides of the heart, the atrium is on top, the ventricles are on the bottom. You know, got 2 sides of my body, we got 2 sides of my heart, right? Right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. Boom. You're done. With that. 4 valves, 2 main arteries, and a whole bunch of branches. But the main thing I want you to remember is that everything that the heart does, it is electric. It's all electrical, along with some other things you have to learn in chemistry. All right, so we're going to do all this part. You seen these before?
Mm-hmm.
I hope so. Why are they color coded? Oxygenated is deoxygenated. So let's take a stab in the dark. What's oxygenated? Okay, and deoxygenated? See how simple blocks are?
Yeah.
Right. Alright, this should look familiar because this is your admit ticket, correct? Alright, later on in class we're going to do a real life demonstration with people to kind of help you understand how the blood flow works, contractions and all that good stuff. Kind of help you understand preload and afterload and right-sided and left-sided heart failure, okay? If I'm going too fast, please let me know. All right. All of this is kind of like your anatomy overview. So you know there's a right coronary artery, left coronary artery, and all those good things. Just know that they exist. What is the main purpose of arteries in the body, no matter where they are?
Oxygen and blood.
Okay, transport blood to get what we need. What are the main purposes of the veins, no matter where they are?
Bring blood.
Okay, so your venous return, your arterial is your supply. Once you get out there, you go and you fly, you will learn by looking at an EKG whether a person has had a right coronary MI or a left one, whatever. Right now, I'm happy if you know that there are right ones and there are left ones, and if they're arteries, they are taking the blood to wherever it needs to go. And this is just a picture of those arteries. Alright, you've seen this stuff before, right? Familiar? Alright, they're never going to go away. Sodium, potassium, and calcium are never going to go away. So, what are the Purkinje? You heard of these before?
Purkinje fibers.
All of those things hinge on electrical impulses generated by the exchange of the ions. I am not a chemistry teacher. I'm not a biochemistry teacher. Okay? Just know that you learn there's excitability across the membrane, right? And depending upon what's on one side of that membrane versus the other, where the attraction is greater, once you cross that membrane, you can change the polarity of one of these molecules, correct? That's where I stop. Anything else, I can't help you. But you need to know that because you're going to be giving medications such as potassium, sodium. What medication do we give all the time that has sodium in it? IV fluid, okay? So your normal saline. And calcium. Calcium channel blockers, you may have passed some of those last semester, right? You're going to give calcium, you're going to learn a lot about calcium when we get into renal. When we get into fourth class, when we talk about your cardiac emergency, all these things are going to come into play. When we talk about musculoskeletal, what is the main component of our bones? What do we need? Calcium. The heart is made up of several different kinds of muscles, right? What kind of muscles do we have in our heart? Cardiac, and we have smooth, and we have skeletal, right? So we need all these things to help our muscles contract. All right. Who remembers the sodium ion, the sodium potassium?
Yeah.
All right, after break, I'll show you a little YouTube clip. It took me about a day and a half to find it because everything else was so complex and complicated that even I started to cry. But I was able to find something that is very simple and it helps you understand the sodium potassium pump and why we need it. So we'll do that after break. When our heart contracts, it makes a sound, does it not? What is that sound?
Loved up.
Loved up. So the love is what sound? What contracts? The atria. Okay, so your atria is your love. So by process of elimination, your love is what? Ventricles. Okay. Have you heard of these words? Diastole and systole.
Mm-hmm.
How are they related to loved up? They are. They are related. How?
Systole's the ventricles.
Okay. She said systole is the ventricles. No, I'm not. I don't give answers. So
Diastole is preload, isn't it?
Huh?
Diastole is preload.
There's nothing preload afterload just yet. Let's stick with the love dub. So she said dub is ventricles. Okay.
Diastole is not a lot.
Systole, asystole, nothing's going on. So your systolic, diastolic, that's your blood pressure, right? Systolic over diastolic. So if it contracts, our atria contract first, that's our love, then that will be our what?
That's
Systolic.
oh, I
And
had
then
it backwards.
if the ventricles contract second, then what's that going to be?
Diastolic.
Makes sense. You looking at me like you've never heard of
So the atrial is systole.
systolic over diastolic. Yes, ma'am.
Thought it was the other way around.
Systole is contraction. Diastole is relaxation. So it beats, it relaxes. It beats, it relaxes. That's how it's supposed to go. Now when it keeps beating and never relaxes, that's when we get into what we call dysrhythmia. That creates a problem for us. Okay? But you still need to understand how your sodium, potassium, and calcium, your fluids, all those things, how they relate to relaxation and contraction and relaxation of the heart. We keep saying it's electric, it's electric, it's electric. Just think about electricity in general. What do you need for electricity to work? Conductivity, right? So you need a source, you need cells, right? And in order for it to conduct, it has to transmit. receiver. So way back when, I'm probably dating myself. In grade school, we used to do this little cool thing with wires and a little switch to make the light bulb go on. Okay, all right, y'all do that too. All right. That's cool. Like that arcade. Okay. Automaticity. I want you guys to learn these words. Automaticity, initiate, go together. Okay? Our heart is automatic, or it should be. So we have automaticity in our heart. We have the ability to initiate an electrical pulse. Inherently. What is inherent? Okay, so you have it. You're born. So if I can automatically make it to initiate it, somewhere in the heart, somebody should be excited. Like, hey, I got a phone call, I got a text, I got a tweet. So they should have the ability to respond to it. Whatever the body does, something within that same system should respond to it to make it work. Okay? Now we have the conductivity. I sent a text or a Facebook message. Later on down the line, somebody responded to it. And now we need to conduct or transmit their electrical impulse from one cell to another. So it's not just good enough to initiate it, to have somebody to respond to it, but we need to transmit it, and it needs to keep going, right? Because we have a whole body that we need to perfuse. So this is where your heart blocks come in if something goes awry here. And we'll talk about that. Any questions thus far? You understand it? So without looking, automaticity means what? Conductivity is what?
Transmit.
Conductivity is transmit. And so respond is excitability. Alright, so you have your SA node. Your SA node starts off everything. So if your SA node starts it off, what two words did we just learn?
Automaticity.
Automaticity and what's the word that goes with automaticity?
Initiate.
Initiate. Okay? So this is how we want you guys to think, so you can relate what you're learning. So the SA node is automatic, right? It's automatically fired. It is going to initiate your electrical impulse. This is where it all starts, all right? It is the primary pacemaker of the heart. If the SA node is doing its job, everybody else should fall in line, okay? This is where we get, here's this word again, inherently. What do you know about 60 to 100 beats a minute?
It's
That's
average.
normal heart rate, right? Okay, so your SA node is your primary pacemaker. It runs the show. And if everybody else is paying attention and doing what they're supposed to, then we have our 60 to 100 beats per minute. Your AV node. Notice these two are located in the same household. Right atrium and your right atrium. So the analogy I like to use is when my youngest son was still living at home and he acted like he couldn't hear when I called him, I would text him. Okay, my room's down this hall, his room is down that hall. So I initiated a text for him to do something I wanted him to do. Okay, and we're living in the same household. Same thing with the SA and the AV node. All right, so if he wanted to still live with us, he needed to receive and coordinate whatever that text was and go do what I told him to do. So this is the same thing with the AV node. Once the SA node sends it, the AV node should receive it, and then it needs to relay that impulse, the message that it received from the SA node, down to the Purkinje fibers, which are located where? In the ventricles. Okay, but say I overslept or I was mad because he didn't, respond to my text that I sent him an hour ago, so I'm just not gonna do it. I'm not texting him anymore. All right, he's a big boy. He should have answered the first time. But he sees that I texted him an hour ago and decides, uh-oh, I better get up and go because I know next she's gonna come in and probably choke me out. So the AD node then can become the primary pacemaker, right? Following what I'm saying? So if the SA node for some reason is not working, we have the inherent ability for the AV node to kick in and take over as the primary pacemaker of the heart. But what do you know about these beats per minute?
Not as well.
It's too slow. If it is too slow, what would your patient look like? Hopefully not.
Shallow breathing.
Diaphragm.
Shallow breathing, diaphoretic. What else? What did you say? Low energy. What did you say? Disoriented. Why?
So they're not getting oxygen.
They're not getting enough oxygen. Okay, so they're not perfusing. The cells aren't perfusing. Let's take it a little bit further. So you told me about mentation, right? So we're not getting anything to our brain cells because they're disoriented. We know that the body in general is not getting enough because you said they may be sluggish. Respiratory-wise, you said that they may have some shallow breathing, okay? What about our urinary system? What might you notice about their urinary output?
Concentrated.
Decrease. It's going to be low. Why? No volume. And remember this when we get to renal, your renal system gets 25% of your cardiac output. So if we're only beating 40 to 60 beats a minute, we're kind of getting at some murky waters. Make sense? All right. We have one more thing left, right? This is your Purkinje fibers. You already know where they are. Their job is to rapidly conduct impulses through the walls of the ventricles, and then we get that dub, right? This is the last resort for pacemaking. So I text my son. He gets up. He goes do what I tell him to do. I text him. He didn't respond. I don't text him anymore. But then he saw it an hour later, and he gets up to go do it. Well, now we're down to the last person left in my house, which is my husband, who knows that I texted him an hour ago, who knows that he didn't get up and go to the store. So he's gonna get up and run and go to the store to keep peace in the house. Okay? So this is what your ventricles are going to do. If nobody else is working, if nobody else is paying attention to what's going on, or if for some reason the mechanical function of the SA node and the AV node are not working, the pacemaker is going to inherently kick in and try to confuse the body. But look at this. What are our beats per minute? Very slow. Okay? Who starts this whole process off? SA node. If the SA node is working, where does our conduction go?
AV node.
The AV node takes it where?
Purkinje.
If all is right with that whole system, our beats per minute will be what?
60 to 100.
If the SA node is not working and the AV node is, what are our beats per minute?
40 to 60.
Okay, and then our patient is going to start becoming what? Symptomatic. All right, so all those things that you said, diaphoresis, tiredness, disorientation, we may even notice some low urine output. All right? SA node, AV node, for some reason, don't care, aren't talking, went on vacation, the pacemaker's like, really? I gotta do it all. Now we're here, 30 to 40 beats per minute. I have seen people walk in with 30 to 40 beats per minute. But we know when we put them on the monitor that nobody's talking to each other. Okay? That's what we call complete heart block. And then we gotta go in and do a whole bunch of stuff that you don't need to know about right now.
Okay.
But all makes sense.
So that's called complete heart block.
Yes. When nobody's talking to each other, everybody's either doing their own thing or firing when they want to, or, you know, you got a bunch of sisters or a bunch of cousins that grew up together and they're kind of like sisters, and you know, at one point you're all talking to each other, and then you kind of split off, and then nobody's talking to nobody, and there's total chaos in the house. That's what
After the last resort, correct?
after the last resort.
So would you do like a cardioversion to restart it, or?
If somebody's in complete heart block, we need to do for the heart. So we will put them on a pacemaker. We will pace them. Give them some medicines, maybe some atropine to help get that heart rate up a little bit. Give them some fluids, and pace that heart maybe at 60 or whatever, and then hopefully cardiology will come in and figure out what it is.
So that's it, even like the Purkinje fibers aren't doing it.
If the Purkinje fibers aren't doing anything, then they're dead.
Oh, so if they are doing, then that's causing a heart block when it's falling onto them?
Yes.
Okay, because if they're, that's that, right?
Right, that's nothing.
They're
We have that
asymptomatic.
flat line that nobody likes to see. You can be, as long as I see some conductivity and I have a pulse on my person and they're breathing, I can deal with that. I'm not the happiest camper in the world, but I can deal with that. What I can't deal with is the flat line. And then we gotta work a whole lot harder. All of this makes sense. Any questions? Comments or concerns?
But I'm sorry. Complete heart block is when it is going 30 to 40 beats a minute using the Purkinje.
Right, this is your last resort for pacemaking the heart. So if this is the only thing that's working, nothing else is working. So everything is blocked from the top down. This
Okay.
is what's left.
So that is called complete heart block, because when I asked you just a minute ago, you said it's after that is when it's considered a complete heart block.
After what?
After there's no resort at all, after that last resort.
No, after no resort at all, they're dead. And
Okay.
nobody's doing anything.
I just wonder, did you keep this PowerPoint up here for
Yes.
us? Okay. Because in my notes, sometimes I say like refer to the PowerPoint, or I'm like, they're gonna take it down.
No, don't take them down. Hold on.
So, conscious still?
Somebody can be conscious at 30 to 40 beats. One lady came in, we knew right away she was very pale. And she just said, I'm tired. I've been feeling this way for a while. We put her on a monitor and everybody's eyes got this. And she was in complete 30-degree heart block and her heart was beating at 32 beats a minute. Oh no. So you just go do what you do when your heart is beating at 200 beats a minute because you kind of know what you have to do. But the main thing you will be tested on is how this works and what it means if you saw somebody at 30 to 40 beats a minute. You know that the only thing that's working is what?
Purkinje fibers.
So do you give potassium, sodium, or calcium?
None of the above. Those will help. Not at that point. One thing you're gonna learn in this block is kind of how to prioritize. So if her heart is not beating, that's my priority. Is to make it beat. And then we'll get labs and we'll figure out, is it electrolyte imbalance? Is it a mechanical issue that we need to get her to surgery to? You know? But whatever the presenting problem is, that's what you focus on, but you keep all those other things in the back of your mind because those will become your anticipatory nursing interventions. Make sense? All right. Alright, so your sodium enters rapidly across the sodium fast channels across the cell membrane. Your calcium enters slowly. And then your potassium is your intracellular ion, right? So potassium is going to be your greater intracellular and your sodium is going to be your greater extracellular. So is that really kind of cemented as to why we will give normal saline as a generic IV fluid?
Because it's already.
Oh, it enters quick.
It's your extracellular ion, right? So you wouldn't really want to mug it up, especially if you don't know what's going on. So we'll just give somebody some normal saline in the beginning for several reasons. What are some of those reasons that you guys learned last semester that will give normal saline? Maintain fluid volume. What's so special about normal saline?
It's isotonic.
Isotonic, I heard heard somebody say it's the same.
Matches ours. Matches us closely.
Right. Matches are us close. Alright, so we really don't know what's going on with somebody. We don't want to initiate giving them fluids that has other stuff in it. And then we're going to muck it up. Okay? So when we come back from break and we watch this little video, you're going to see how, remember ATP and ABC? ABC, whatever they are. Alright. So that's going to kind of show you and illustrate why this is so important and why you have to watch your labs and understand the balance between all of your electrolytes. Right. If I'm giving a calcium channel blocker, and this says that it enters slowly through the membrane, why am I giving that blocker?
To control the contraction.
Am I controlling the contraction, or am I controlling something else? What did you say?
The repolarization
Of what?
the heart, the muscle. So it's
Of the cell membrane.
Let me ask them to say it one more time. If this enters slowly, okay, normally, that's what it's supposed to do. If I'm giving a blocker, it's going to be
Staying in the.
it's going what?
make it go fast.
Not fast,
No,
but
it's
slow.
slow.
Calcium blocker. So if I'm giving a calcium channel blocker, then that means that the calcium is going to fast, and it's supposed to go
Slow.
So when you have them going too fast, you were on track with that. So I didn't want to say no, you were wrong, but you were ahead of where we were going. That does increase that excitability. That is going to increase the contractility of that heart. And usually it's going to be your atrium. So when you have someone who is like an atrial fibrillation, we will give them a calcium channel blocker to see if we can slow that down a little bit and try to convert them back into a normal rhythm. So if you're blocking something, usually that means that we need to kind of slow it down, decrease the workload of the heart, but in turn, increase our cardiac output. Makes sense.
Is that Cardizem?
Yes. Cardizem, Ditizem, we're going to get all of those. We're going to, after we go through this, we're going to start that out. Am I making sense? And some of you are looking at me like, I ain't got no stuff. Are you comfortable? Are you stretching Sabrina with that person? You don't know yet. Okay. All right. We have depolarization, repolarization. The two together equals our cardiac action potential. You're like, I don't get it. This will make sense when you see an EKG. This is what you get on that picture. Is the depolarization, the repolarization. Then you have your little relaxation phase. This whole electrical activity makes our PQRST. In English, this is what it looks like. We talked about this, right? You've seen this equation before.
Mm-hmm.
So our cardiac output is the amount of blood pumped by each ventricle. Your stroke volume is the blood ejected per heartbeat. And so our cardiac output is going to be stroke volume times heart rate. These look familiar?
Yep.
Maybe, kind of, sort of. How you feeling about that? Preload. The amount of blood within the ventricles at the end of the diastole. What did we say diastole was? Is that love or dub? Dub. Okay. Afterload is the amount of resistance to ejection of blood from the ventricle. Okay? So we have blood there, but for some reason there's a resistance, and the heart can't do what it's supposed to do. Okay? Your contractility is going to be the force generated by the contraction of the myocardium. And then your ejection fraction is the percentage of this node is what's left at the end of the stroke. So your ejection fraction is what they measure from your left ventricle. If you have blood that stays there in that ventricle, what's going to happen to that ventricle?
It's gonna swell up.
It's going to swell, okay? So we're going to get it. What is that called when it gets bigger?
Mega. Sorry.
Atrophy does what others say.
Oh, man.
Megaly.
Yes, I knew it started with an M.
Like,
Like mega something.
It gets big. I know that much. In the case of cardiac, is bigger always better?
No.
No. Because if it's big and weak, does that do us any good?
No.
No. That left ventricle is very, very important. Why? That's right. It goes out to the body from that left ventricle. So if it's weak, or say if we have repeat MI, or we have congestive heart failure, or something else wonky going on with our heart. If our ejection fraction is low, are we confusing our body? No. But as we age, what happens?
Goes down.
Yes. So if somebody is 80, 85, and they have an ejection fraction of 40, 35 to 40, I'm psyched. You know, especially if they have some other stuff going on. If I have a 45-year-old with an ejection fraction of 35 to 40, I'm very worried.
So when a person is called cardiomedical, I don't know, I've seen them have a great big heart.
Cardiomedical.
Is that because it's just worked so hard that the muscle built up and it's gotten that big because you work out, your muscles get bigger?
It's stretching, but it's not filled.
Or is it because it's full of fluid and it can't get the fluid out? Because the muscle looks huge.
The muscle is huge, but it's not. There's no force behind that muscle. The contractility is decreased.
I'm just wondering how it got big like that. Is it because
It's
it worked
working
so
too hard.
hard?
It's working hard to do
Like
what
if you're working out,
yes,
your
yes.
muscles get big.
Muscle got big, but when you work out physically, if your muscles get big, are your muscles weak?
No.
No. But in the cardiac case, it is weak. It's big, but it's weaker because we need that force to do that
But that is how it got bigger.
from
From
working.
working so hard.
So it was compensating for the weakness by building itself up.
Yes.
So
Because that's just a natural part of our body. If you're told if you work out, what happens? You build muscle mass, right?
Yeah.
But can you build muscle mass to disease muscle? Where it can be fully functional to its most optimal level.
It doesn't quite make sense.
But
The
it's a
bigger
depth.
muscles should be able to work harder, but it's
should
not working
be.
effectively.
Cardiac muscle's totally different.
Heart, thank you. You have skeletal smooth, all these different muscles. Okay. But for the heart, bigger is not better. I need it to be smaller, compact. So when it contracts with good, powerful, effective force to get that blood to go where it needs to be. If it's big, it's kind of like a water balloon. It's big, it's full of fluid, but then it takes a lot of force and pressure for it to go in to do what it needs to do.
So it got big because it was so ineffective.
It was
that
trying,
it was working
it's trying,
so hard
it's
that it
trying,
built
yes.
itself up, but it's still ineffective.
It's still ineffective.
Okay.
So, could that happen from like someone having, say, like COPD, because they're having so much trouble breathing, and then
It could be COPD, your congestive heart failure people. Anytime that this gets engorged or swollen or what's the disease you get in the heart? What?
The DHS.
No. Pericarditis. What's the thing when you get the dental work and it
Oh, no, it's
Um,
Oh, good Lord, yes, thank you.
And it
Start with
attacks
an
the vessels of the heart.
the
So that muscle is diseased.
Dental
But-
work?
Yeah.
or strep throat.
Strep throats.
Oh,
Most
okay.
people.
It's strep turns into rheumatic fever.
Yeah. Scarlet fever, actually. Rheumatic fever way back in the day. They don't have it anymore. But they used to, if you had like rheumatic fever with prophylactic, you put you on antibiotics before you had dental work. So it wouldn't get to blood, it would get to the heart. But that muscle is diseased. So it's ineffective. But it still has to serve a purpose. So it's going to contract. It's going to contract harder and harder, but not at the force that it needs to perfuse the body. I'm making this make sense.
Yeah, why would someone at 45 have like that to that extent of an issue?
It could be a congenital anomaly. It could be that it isn't taken care of themselves. High blood pressure, diabetes, drug abuse, youth, stress, all of those things that you we're hoping that but stress, lack of sleep, all those things that we put you through in nursing school, yeah.
Y'all are trying to blow our hearts out.
All right, any questions about that? Let me go back. This last slide. So I'm going to talk about preload and afterload a little bit more. So how do you think preload and afterload are related?
The afterload is trying to push out what's left of the preload. That's how I think of it.
Okay.
I don't know if that's right, but
Well, I think of preload as like pre-trip, it's filling, and then afterload's like, you know,
Which
The
is
preload
exactly
is
what
the kind of
you said.
yeah, it's just
preload
a different
is
way of
what's
looking at
being
it, right?
pumped out, and the afterload is the resistance of
All right.
that.
So then preload. Where do we get our blood from for preload? Then? Where does that blood come from?
Atrium.
I heard it over here.
Inferior vena cava and superior vena.
Give me one V.
Superior vena.
Vena cava.
Venus return.
All Venus.
See, it's all about simple. We keep it simple in here. So it's your Venus return, right? So that's gonna be your preload. So then we have our love, right? Woo. Where is the blood supposed to go next? With the atrial contract, where's the blood go next?
Ventricles.
Okay, so that's gonna be part of our preload. Our afterload, after our ventricles contract, that needs to go out. You need to get out of here. Go do what you're supposed to do. But what does this word mean to you?
Hold back.
Okay, it's a resistance. So if there's a greater resistance to our afterload, what's gonna happen to our preload?
It's gonna go up.
It's gonna back up. Okay, so you heard of that condition, congestive heart failure? We're gonna talk about all of this. And we're gonna talk about our contractility and how we're gonna make the blood go through the heart so you can get a visual picture. And that's how we're gonna tie in congestive heart failure, even though it's in the second PowerPoint, you really kind of sort of understand it and get it when you do the visual. Okay? Let's take a break and then we'll come back